The Luminous Mind, episode 17.
I love hearing those stories because really I feel like I'm reaching through these leaders that are setting up the schools and serving all these families in this community. Like I have a little bit in that, a little touch of that comes from me, and I'm so grateful to be able to do that.
Benjamin Franklin once said, "Do not curse the darkness, rather light a candle instead." If you're ready to set your mind on fire, then prepare yourself for the Luminous Mind with your host, Rebecca Bowman.
Today's fire starter is Brenda Haws. Brenda has been teaching and training and mentoring in homeschool arenas for nearly 20 years. She's developed and launched several Commonwealth schools and trained and supported the development and growth of many others across the country. Her wisdom and insight into family and community education is sought repeatedly by others, and she regularly presents to groups, large and small, about her vision and passion for enduring educational ideas and principles. She's the president of the new Commonwealth Schools Association, a newly formed alliance supporting the ongoing training and organizational development of 85 Commonwealth schools across the country. She's a mother of 6 and currently resides in St. George, Utah. Welcome, Brenda. And, you know, I'm in Idaho Falls, so I'm really wishing I was in St. George right now.
Yeah, it is really nice. Even the last couple of days, it's still been very cold even by temperature, but I tell you, when the sun's out, it just doesn't matter.
Well,
it's beautiful.
My favorite national park is Zion's National Park, so I really recommend anybody going there because it's absolutely beautiful. But I briefly told our audience about you. Can you kind of expound upon that with your family and your hobbies, passions, and then talk about your Commonwealth schools?
I would love to. And, you know, Rebecca, thanks so much for having me on. And I loved the title that you used, Fire Starter. When you said that, I just went, yes, I so identify with that. It really is what I am. And I think sometimes people around me, my friends and stuff, are like, oh, don't get too close, you'll get burned. But
you do get pretty passionate about it, huh?
I do. They know they're going to get sucked into something great.
Great.
So let me just tell you a little bit about myself. I do have 6 kids. Right now, they range in ages from 9 to 23.
Wow.
It's been fun starting to go through the adult stuff now with my older kids. They each have their own unique personalities and struggles and gifts. So it's been quite the adventure over the last 23 years to raise them, to home educate them, and to do, each one's so different. So it's been a lot of fun. I have a fantastic husband who is extremely supportive. In fact, home educating our children was his idea in the first place, and I thought he was crazy. But a lot of friends helped me look into it, and I totally warmed up so fast. So I love what I do. What I do on the side is really my passion, which besides being a mother, of course, and a wife, I love to build communities. And it's something that comes so natural to me, and that I can see how even as a young child, I had unique gifts that, of course, at the time I had no idea where they were going to go. But now I can see how they just fit me into this place where I'm at right now, which is using all of my uniqueness to help others. And I love that I get to do that. It is so amazing that I get to live that life.
It's really fun. Mentoring is the best.
It truly is.
So what was your personal educational experience?
Oh, I grew up in the public school system. No doubt about it. And my parents were both public school, educated in the public system. My father spent 2 years in college, and then he's really entrepreneurial minded, and he had this young family that he needed to care for, and really felt like he needed to leave the educational system and get started on that process. And of course, this would have been in the late 60s and early 70s, and it was a whole different world back then. But it was interesting that college wasn't really at the forefront of, I think, my parents' minds as me, the oldest, as I was being raised. And so I think I had a decent education, but really I look back and I think, wow, if you would have asked me what I majored in high school, it would have been socialization.
Me too.
I am a people person, and I've been like that since elementary school. So always just amazed at the intricacies of people working together and talking to each other and what made them upset and what calmed them. And it was just always fascinating. In junior high, in fact, my nickname was Shrink. I was the resident psychologist, and you could often find me sitting on the floor in the hallway talking to some poor girl who was bawling her eyes out. And in high school we had a little bit more of that. I always had people coming to me saying, help me with this, help me with that. So I think I was pretty patient too, so that was helpful, I guess.
So why did you choose the homeschool? You talked about it being kind of your husband's idea, but what was the push to homeschool your kids?
I had the sweetest, most perfect 4.5-year-old you've ever seen. And I'm talking, brunette Shirley Temple. That was what she was. And all of a sudden, it just wasn't even on my radar. Like school in general, I had kind of finally figured out this age group. I was feeling pretty good. We're in a groove. I thought I was a pretty good mom,
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, I've got friends coming at me saying, Brenda, it's time to go register for kindergarten. Let's go together. I've got to register my son. You could register your daughter. And I just panicked. I went, wait a minute. What does that mean? That means that she has to leave the home. She has to go to this place that literally at that point I'd never seen. It was in a different neighborhood. I had no reason to drive past it. So I'd never even seen the building. And, teachers that I had no idea what their background was, what their values were. It was just very scary to me. And I had the conversation with my husband, and we did have 2 friends that were homeschooling at the time. And he said, well, why don't we homeschool? And I thought, you've got to be kidding me.
You're like I need one more job.
Right. Like I can't get dinner on the table, on time. I can't get the laundry done. I can't, all this stuff. And then you want to add 6 hours of education every day on top of all of that. And I just thought he was crazy. But I went ahead and gave it a shot. There was a lot of prayer, and I figured out that in California, you don't have to put your kids in kindergarten. It's not legally required. And so I figured that I could kind of do this experiment through the kindergarten year. And if I completely failed, it would be fine. No one would know because I could just put her into first grade and I wouldn't have to tell anyone,
Yeah.
So we did the experiment for the first year. I fell in love with it. I fell in love with learning with her in that way and just adored it. Although, we had our failures and we definitely had our hiccups and stumbles, but I wouldn't go back after that. I was set.
Great. So tell us about your educational philosophy and maybe the curriculum that you use.
That's a crazy kind of a question, I think, because curriculum, I could point to a few that I like, that I use some of their resources, but I've never followed, well, not since the first 2 years, probably, have I followed anything where, you get it in the mail, you got all these books, they give you a parent guide, and you go through the parent guide day by day, right? Well, not me. I throw the parent guide out the window. It's gone. And we have a lot of fun with whatever materials just came. And I think I would consider my educational philosophy to be really holistic, that I just really believe that my children are created and born to do something great in this life, and that it's my job to help them prepare for that. Now, each one of them is so different, like I mentioned earlier, that you can't do it the same for all of the kids. Now, there's things that we do together, obviously, but as far as really looking at their unique skills and talents and saying, hey, I've got an artist over here, and I need to be able to nurture that while he's working on, of course, other things that he needs to just be a good citizen and have great study skills and all that kinds of thing. He's got to really work on that art. I've got another one over here who is just loves to read and write and wants to be a writer. Well, those are two completely different deals that I have to deal with in this home. And I've had musicians. I've had my oldest, she just wanted to be the best mom that she could possibly be. And now she's actually getting into healthcare stuff and is starting to study along those ways. And so they're all different. It's kind of crazy.
So how has your paradigm or educational philosophy changed over time?
Definitely when I first started, you do what you know, which is how you were educated.
Yeah, public school.
Right? Yeah. So I had the whole schedule on a graph sheet. It was great. And it was on the wall. And it said that at 9 o'clock we were going to do this. And at 9:30 we were going to do math. And at 10, it was all broken down. And, talk about way to set yourself up for failure. Oh my gosh. Yeah. I don't know who was more upset, me or my daughter.
Yeah.
We aren't following the schedule, because you just always feel behind.
Yeah.
No matter what.
Well, and with schedules, I mean, they're great to a certain extent, but the problem is sometimes it may take you an hour and a half to do a math lesson, and then the next day it takes you 20 minutes. So when you follow a schedule and it takes a little longer, it is frustrating.
Yeah, and I think it took me at least 2 years to figure out that schedule that I was thinking I should be able to hold myself accountable to was actually just creating failure.
Yeah.
And making me feel like I couldn't do what really I feel like I was born to do, and that was teach my children.
Yes.
That's a natural calling for a mother, So it was definitely something that once I threw that out, and I threw it out because I was lucky enough to go and hear Oliver DeMille speak in, like 1999 or 2000. I don't remember exactly when it was. And I came home with permission to throw away that schedule and to throw away the math book that I was using at the time that really literally made my oldest cry every time I got it out. She's like in first grade, and it was traumatic. And I realized, we don't have to do this way. And, so I found new ways, and I kept experimenting. And the more I learned, the more I realized the way that, and this is just my personal opinion, but the way that the public schools are doing it may be the worst way to educate our children.
Yeah.
And that really gave me permission to go off and find what was right for our family.
Yeah.
So,
well, and they separate all the subjects, and that's not how anybody's life operates. I mean, even when you're in a job, you mix all these skills together that you really have to learn how to work together. So what's the best advice that you ever received? Obviously, throwing out the schedule. Anything else?
Yeah. I don't know. I feel like I've been surrounded by wise people like all my life, and they've given me so much. But I think probably one of the most important things was to turn off the phone and the Facebook and any other distractions, things that were distracting me away from my primary duty during certain time. So even though we threw out the schedule, we really stuck to, okay, we want to have school from 9 o'clock to 12 o'clock. Of course, this is when my kids were littler, and we could really do all of school in that period of time if I didn't get distracted. So that actually took me a long time. Like, the advice came early, but being able to implement that advice was a real struggle for me and took years.
Trying to just shut out the outside world. Sometimes that's really hard. I know sometimes when you're a homeschooler, people just like, well, she's home, and they call any time of the day and really interrupt it. If you were a teacher at school, they would never think of calling you, in the middle of your school day. But okay, so I'm going to ask you the big S word. What do you think about socialization, and what do you think it means to be socialized?
I love the big S word. I love socialization. Now, granted, it's not what we focus on in my little homeschool here at home. It's not our priority, but it really is a part of what I do as a business with New Commonwealth Schools. I totally recognize how much we learn from one another and how much we grow when we're in groups and teams and working together. And children can do a lot on their own, but they can also do a lot with groups. And I watch what my boys can. Oh, it's a little scary, but what my boys can do I had 6 boys over at my house between the ages of 8 and 11. And, they created their whole new game that they then played. And then they're like, well, we can't wait till we get together again next week so we can play the game again. And they get creative, and it's so much fun. But I don't want socialization like they have in the public school. I want this natural, organic thing that happens when kids get together and when adults get together, and especially when families get together. And really, that's what part of what New Commonwealth Schools is all about, is creating what we call tribal communities, where the families are all attending one day a week at the same time. Of course, dads, we're lucky if we get a dad or two that's not at work during those hours. But it's such a great environment where the kids are learning from each other. They're also learning the basics of good behavior, like, hey, take your turn. It's okay. It's going to be your turn next, or don't talk while the teacher's talking, please, and little things like that. But at the same time, my kids in the school are being taught by my friends. I know these moms
that have the same values and things
same,
as you do.
Same values, but probably different skills.
Yeah.
So I can't be everything to my kids. There's a lot of things I can't do, and I am so grateful for these other moms that we get together with that then do amazing art projects or science projects with my kids, and those are my weaknesses for sure.
Yeah.
So
yeah, we're not all talented the same way, so definitely embrace that. So what are some of the biggest obstacles you face, and what have you learned from those obstacles?
Well, I would have to say that, like I mentioned earlier, the organization and prioritizing within our school on a personal, in our homeschool level. Like I said, it took me years to really say, this is my priority at this time, and to not allow those distractions. And then the other thing was to also recognize the fact that your kids, let me see how to say this. A lot of homeschool families put their kids back in public school around the time they start to hit puberty. And that's because the parents, I think, start to recognize, hey, this child is not thriving with me. They're kind of going above and beyond where I'm at. And I don't necessarily, whether that's academically or not is not as much the case as really by the time they hit that, mom as the priority mentor is not always the best, or at least, not her by herself. They know how to manipulate me by then. They know the buttons. They know how to get around me. My efficiency and effectiveness does diminish around that time. And so, again, I'm going to go back to the Commonwealth Schools by having them have an outside mentor that is someone who I know really well and I know loves my kids, actually, because, we've been in this community for years, and they are mentoring my child in something, just even if it's just one little class of something, or maybe it's a whole project that they're doing. But my child is now accountable to somebody besides just me. And that's been a huge thing for my kids. And, dads are great too. Like, boy, if they can move from me to dad and then also have an outside mentor on top of that, like, that seems to just be like the success formula.
Yes.
So
I agree.
That's been powerful.
Yes. So what do you do when you're discouraged or you have bad days? What is something you do to combat that?
Okay, well, honestly, I'm a natural optimist, so it doesn't happen a ton, but sometimes it really does happen, and I totally get those days, and it's usually not just a day here and there, because it's pretty easy to pick myself up from a day. But there have been times where it's been like a whole semester where I'm thinking, this just doesn't feel right, or it just isn't going the way I want it to go, and really, I connect with those moms in my Commonwealth school that are my friends. And as long as we're not all having a bad day at the same time, which just doesn't happen, they're a great support. And they can remind me that I'm amazing and that these kids are mine for a reason. And I'm the one who is really meant to be their primary mentor. Even if I'm delegating some of that out to other people, I am naturally that person that knows them the best and understands what they need. And they just kind of pick me up and put me back on my feet.
Yes. Can't say enough good about having good friends and mentors around to help you. So before we go on, let's take a minute to thank our sponsors.
Hey, fire starters, this is Mark, producer of The Luminous Mind. If you're like me, the thought of going out to the store and shopping is enough to make you want to crawl in a hole and hide. If that's you, then do your shopping online through Amazon. Just go to theluminousmind.net, click on the Amazon link, and shop away. Also, most of the books and resources that Rebecca and her guests discuss can be found on our Amazon links as well. Again, if you're like me, you have already accidentally signed up for Amazon Prime. So most of those purchases should have free shipping as well. Good luck!
All right, so welcome back. So, Brenda, what are some successes that you've seen in your homeschooling and then also with Commonwealth Schools?
Well, because I do have some kids that are in that adult phase now, it is fun to look at that finally and say, wow, we did good. We did good. It's okay. Some things I never would have guessed, like the fact that Janessa's now really looking into wellness and healthcare when, really when she was 14 and 15 and I would say, eat your fruits and veggies. And she would just be like, Mom, And now she's calling me saying, Mom, I'm really looking into this wellness program where I'd be certified. I'm like, oh, you're killing me. Her son eats only organic foods and she's just a fantastic mother and she's a great wife. And really, that's primarily what I wanted for my kids. But at the same time, she loves to learn. And same with my second daughter, who's in her 20s. She's pursuing her music career. And her major right now, as she puts it, is learning to be a grown-up. So she's 20 years old. She's living on her own. She's in a different state than we are. And she's going through all that stuff of learning to manage her money. But they're healthy kids that really interact with the world around them really, really well. They have friends. They have things they're passionate about. And really, that's what I want for my children. So my next one is the one that's going to be off to college and doing all kinds of college stuff, and he's excited about that. And the girls, it wasn't their path. They had other things that they wanted to do, but they're doing what they wanted to do. So that's the important thing.
Yes.
As far as Commonwealth Schools, it is my passion, and I love it. And I love working with the torchbearers, those families that are getting a school started in a new area. And I love getting them excited and then watching that excitement come back to me. So when they send me an email or get on the phone with me and say, I know you said that people would come, and I didn't believe you, but now our school's full and we've only been open for 4 months. Yes, we totally run off the if you build it, they will come scenario. And it works. And they come back to me with these sometimes it's tear-jerking stories of how a family in their community was served by the other families. And I love hearing those stories because really I feel like I'm reaching through these leaders that are setting up the schools and serving all these families in this community. Like I have a little bit in that, a little touch of that comes from me. And I'm so grateful to be able to do that. So, and I love interacting with them because like I said, I'm a people person. It's all about the systems that make everything effective and efficient so that we can have good friends and good support, and we can strengthen home education in our communities. So it's happening, and I'm thrilled.
That's great. Let's see. What is one thing that you do? Like, give me a personal habit that either makes you successful, or tell me how you organize your time and your family and helping to start all these Commonwealth schools. How do you do all that?
Okay, well, so we could kind of go back to what I said earlier about really keeping the distractions from happening during our school time. And when I realized that I was going to take New Commonwealth Schools from a hobby business level, which meant when I feel like working on it, I'll work on it, to an actual business that was going to serve thousands and thousands of families nationwide, I knew I had to do something different. And I sat down with my kids and I said, okay, look, this is where we're at. And of course I waited. I mean, my youngest is 9 now, so I don't have any little tiny kids anymore. And they're very self-motivated, my younger boys. And I guess I've kind of got this figured out a little bit more now. So things are a little bit more automatic.
Yeah, they click.
Yeah, it just goes, and it's awesome, and I kind of know when they need me more and when they need me less and stuff. But we had to set up a schedule, and My kids do not, this might surprise some people, my kids don't wake up until 9 o'clock in the morning. And that's because I don't have any little ones anymore. That wasn't the case when I had 2 and 3-year-olds, but they get up about 9 and they come straight upstairs for devotional. And that has to start every single day. That is what I've decided is my top priority for my homeschool is I want my kids to have devotional every day.
Yeah.
And so if we do that, everything else seems to kind of flow, because right after devotional, I ask, they're there. They're in front of me. It's a captive audience. And I can ask them, okay, what's your priority today? What's your priority? What are you going to work on today? Do you have a list? Blah, blah, blah. So we have that starts out our day. And then they're not done with school until they've written their daily logs. And again, remember that I have kids that are 9 and older, but and they can be a couple sentences, but it's just a daily little journal of what they learned every day. And so when they think they're done, I say, well, did you do your daily log? And that's kind of the way we wrap it up from beginning to end. It's the bookends. And they know that basically from 12 o'clock to 3 o'clock in the afternoon is my work hours. That doesn't mean they're done with school, because usually they're still studying or doing something. So I have my work hours in the morning before they wake up, and I have my work hours in the afternoon, and then the evening is time with my family. So I have had to schedule it out, and it's working pretty well. I think it's working pretty well. We'll see. Yeah.
That's great. So what are some long-term goals that you have for yourself or for your family? I love the fact that I kind of want to comment on your devotional. We were kind of touch and go with our devotional for a while, and I really realized I was missing out on a perfect opportunity. I mean, how many parents get to have a daily devotional with their children where I get to teach them something of value, my feelings about my own spirituality and that is true. I totally agree that let's take the time and do that, because that is the one thing that I think your kids are going to always remember. So I'll let you get back to your long-term goals, but I just kind of want to throw that in there.
No, that's great. I agree. Once I figured out that was really my top priority as a mom, things just really started to click. And it's true that when you do the most important thing, you can at least chalk that up for success and say, I did something good today.
Yeah.
I did devotional. So on top of that, I think, that does show, I think, what my most important long-term goal is, which is having children that understand where they come from and what our family values are and my personal values, and instilling that in them, sharing that with them and watching them grow in that way. So, so far, so good. It's definitely not perfect. And oh my goodness, I mean, if I opened all my struggles to you, I have them like everyone else. And we've had some really, really rough times in our home. But for the most part, I'm seeing these grown children coming out of this beautifully, and I'm really happy with that and grateful, so grateful for the opportunity to have educated them this way. And they didn't always all want to be homeschooled. There were times when, Mom, can we go to the public school? We want to do this. And sometimes I allowed it, and sometimes I didn't. It was different for different kids, and it depended on where we were living and where they were headed. And so we allowed, a little bit of, here, you could take a couple classes over here at the high school, or you can go take some community college classes. It's like I said, you have to look at each child. But that is probably my biggest family goal, is that they're happy. They have that amount of spirituality. They're aware of that and love it themselves. And that we as a family get along well in the long run and interact with each other on an adult level. Like, I could see it 20 years from now when we're all grown and there's all these grandbabies. So excited about that. So I really, really want that. As far as my professional life over here with Commonwealth Schools, I know that right now there are enough homeschoolers out there to actually, if everyone wanted to do a Commonwealth School, be a part of a Commonwealth School, which I know isn't the reality, but of course they do. What am I saying? There are enough homeschoolers across the country right now to have almost one Commonwealth School for every 3 public elementary schools that there are out there.
Wow.
Does that blow your mind?
That really does.
That's amazing. And what it says to me is that there are a ton of people out there trying homeschooling, that it's becoming a viable, most people still see it as an experiment, and I'm okay with that. I'm grateful that they are thinking about it.
Yeah.
So that's really what I want long term, is to see that there's all these options out here. And it doesn't matter to me what you choose. If you choose public for your children, private school, charter school, Commonwealth school, home education, whatever it is, it doesn't matter. I'm happy if you thought about it.
Yeah.
You know, if you looked at the options and said, this is actually what's best for my family, instead of just the status quo, which is, oh, it's
just like, this is my zip code, this is where I go.
Right, exactly. Exactly. So
Exactly.
yeah, that's really my long-term goal, is to just have these Commonwealth schools all over the country so that they're an option.
Yeah.
That they're like, the way I describe it sometimes is when people jump off the cliff of public school, you know, they leave public school and it's like this free fall. And I want to have something there, that soft landing that will catch them at the bottom and say, we got you.
Yeah.
It's okay. Let us help you figure this out.
Well, and I did tell Brenda before we even started what a blessing my Commonwealth school has been in my life. You know, we did a little bit of the dual enrolling too, and I just was never really happy about the quality of the instruction, you know, what they were picking up there. And then I just had belonged to a few homeschooling groups that they were very loose. People were coming and going, and there was really no consistency. And when I got involved in my Commonwealth school, it was like a breath of fresh air. And in fact, my oldest son, he was being dual enrolled at the time. He actually decided to come back, and that's where his focus was, is he's like, that's where my friends are. We have an orchestra. So he's like, you know, I feel like we get to do those type of things and lots of activities, and he loves it. So I can't give you a big enough plug for it. What advice or encouragement would you give to somebody who's just starting out?
Oh, you know, just first of all, relax. Like, I know it's so scary. It's a really scary thing to do, because what you're doing is you're taking on the responsibility of educating your children, where, you know, the normal status quo is to send them to public school, and you're really delegating all of that out, and not even just delegating it, you're really taking yourself out of the equation for 90% of that, and saying, okay, somebody else take care of this. So when you bring your kids home or decide to start with homeschooling, that feels like such a heavy weight on your shoulders. And I just would have everyone just take a deep breath, look at your children.
It's going to be okay.
Yeah, it is. And just say, what do they need? And not even as a whole, but each individual one. So when I looked at Janessa and said, what do you need from me and from your education? And when I looked at Amber and said, what do you need? I mean, they were two totally different things. One of them, you know, was into this mothering, and of course that turned into the wellness. The other one was all over music. And I said to my husband, I said, well, of course, I'm not musically talented. Okay, she does not get it from me. And it's from my husband. I said, we need to just have the piano in a common room in the house instead of stuck it was in the parlor, in the music room. It just didn't get used. We need to have it in the main room of the house so that it's being used all the time, so that they're being exposed and inspired by your playing. And sure enough, I mean, now all my kids think they're pianists. Yeah. They all play. Most of them haven't had any lessons, but boy, that piano is going for hours every day. So it's just looking at them and just analyzing and just taking a step back and saying, what do they need? Not they've got to know all their grammar, and they've got to know all their math, and they've got to know 3 different languages, and they've got to, you know, you can like freak yourself out with that.
Yeah, you can.
Don't do it.
Yeah. So do you have a favorite book or resource that you want to share?
I have so many. If you are, you know, running a Commonwealth school or thinking about that, one of my favorite is Good to Great by Jim Collins. He is a fantastic leader, and the leadership lessons that are in there are great. There's a lot of other ones too. I would have to say that I love the TJ Ed book by Oliver DeMille. I really enjoy, I just love classics. I love children's books. I love adult books. I'm just reading all the time, and so to pick one,
it's hard.
Almost impossible.
And for homeschoolers, books really do become a love. So I agree with you. How would you like to see the world change in the future?
If I could be queen for a day, I would probably send all parents to an education seminar that I would put together and say, You can make your decision about how you're going to educate your kids after you've seen what all the choices and options are.
Yes. Yes. And that's what we want to do at the Luminous Mind, is to present all those to those parents so that they get an idea of what's out there, so that they don't have to think that they have to go to the school with their zip code on it. So I agree with you. Let's give them all the options. Okay, so before we say goodbye, can you give us any parting words or maybe a favorite quote that you'd like to share? And then tell us how we can get connected with you.
Great. Okay, the one thing that I want to share, this is with any homeschool mom that's out there, whether you've been doing it for 20 years or whether you're just thinking about it and considering it. If you're a prayerful person, get on your knees. As you make the decision, include that higher power in that decision. And then as soon as you've made the decision, write it down, record it, put it somewhere. If you have a journal that you use all the time, put it in there, but star the top corner of that page. Make it so that you can re-access it when you're having those tough days, when you're thinking, why in the world am I doing this? This is so hard. And it will really help to remotivate you. It will help you to recommit. And it will just remind you all the reasons why you made this decision in the first place. And I think that's super, super important.
Yes, I love that. I actually did that. I mean, 10 years into it, yeah, your perspective changes. And all of a sudden you wonder what you were doing in the first place. But to be able to come back and refocus, that's just great advice. Thank you so much. And then how do we get in touch with you?
Well, we have our website at newcommonwealthschools.com, and you can take a look. There's a ton of videos in 2 different places on that website that you can just look at and see what other people, both youth and children and parents who are involved in Commonwealth schools, how they feel about it, and what they're experiencing or their families are experiencing because they're a part of a Commonwealth school. As for me, I'm always available. My email address, it's long, but it's simple. So it's just Brenda at newcommonwealthschools.com. Just make sure the schools is plural for both the email and the website. I would love to hear from you. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to email me and just ask. I thrive off of this is my passion. I love to talk about it. So give me a chance.
And she sounds like so much fun. So, well, thank you so much for joining us, Brenda. It's been so fun, and I've just enjoyed talking to you.
Thanks. I have too. I so appreciate you just having me on here. It's been a blast. Thanks.
Great. Thank you. Thanks for listening to The Luminous Mind. To get the great resources that Brenda talked about, please go to our website, theluminousmind.net. Click on the Amazon widget and order them today. Also, consider being a fire starter by clicking on the Fire tab. Like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter and Google+, and subscribe to our YouTube channel, as well as in iTunes. Help us to continue to light minds on fire and change the paradigm of education.